So in Photoshop, we learned last time if you wanted to take, say, some artwork and to resize it. So I've opened up, say, this image itself. There's two different ways you can do this. Of course, you can always go to Image, down to Image Size, and this allows you to resize it based on the images, the resolution, pixel dimensions, those type of things as well. So that's the easy way of doing it. I want to show you the official way that gives you the most control over the size that you save it and also the file type that you save it. And you can do this all in relatively one step. I'm going to hit cancel. What we're going to be working in is found under File, Save for Web. Some older versions have it called Save for Web and Devices. Basically, it's just a way of saving things for different areas. And we've kind of seen this in the Illustrator class. It's the same basic setup. Kind of a program within a program. It'll give you an image that you're working with, and here's all of the options that you can choose from on the right hand side. First thing you need to know, whenever you work in this, there's a couple of different ways you can view something. The first tab is the original. Whenever you view the original, it's not going to show you any changes that you make. So you always want to make sure either the optimized, or if you want to look through several different options, it'll give you a 2-up or a 4-up, and this will choose different types of formats you can choose from. Whenever you make a change to the format, look at the very bottom of it. So this is saving it the original as the gallery image JPEG, and you can see the file size of it. Here's a JPEG that's a lot lower quality. So you can see it's at 116 kilobytes versus the almost 1.5 megabytes. Another version, an even lower quality JPEG and even lower quality JPEG. And so this is giving you 4-up different options that you can look at to be able to understand what changes you're making. I'm just going to keep it on optimized for now so we can see what we're changing. There are really 3 different file formats that you need to know when saving something for a web. Each one of them has different uses, different necessities, why you would choose the different ones. There's the JPEG, the GIF, the GIF. By the way, it's pronounced GIF. I pronounce it GIF or GIF. The Oxford English Dictionary puts it GIF or GIF. The original people who created the GIF format wanted to call it GIF, as in GIF peanut butter. So there's a little bit of trivia for you. And the other one is the PNG, Portable Network Graphic. Each one of these is a little bit different, does something unique, and they all have special purposes. For the most part, 99% of whatever you create is going to be saved as a JPEG. JPEG can be opened up by almost any image viewer. It can be sent, it can be compressed, so you can save very high quality images and you can save very low quality images all through a JPEG. So most of what you're going to do is save as a JPEG. A GIF, on the other hand, is a very low quality image. It's very good for putting on websites because it loads very quickly. What it will do is it won't save every possible color that's inside of the image itself, all 200 million or however many pixels that are inside of it. Instead, it's only going to look at the necessity, the colors that need to make up this image, and it's going to compress it down to those colors, therefore making the size of it much, much smaller. Let's see, watch what happens if I choose GIF. May not have shown up very different on here. I'm going to back up. On the far side, you can choose how many colors are there. And if I back up even smaller, you can see everything that's inside of this image is made up of only those colors themselves. And the computer will go through and see what's necessity and throw out the ones that are not. You can lower it down, so if I wanted to say have 32-bit colors. How many of y'all ever played a 32-bit video game system? Super Nintendo, that type of thing? That's 32 bits. Only uses 32 different colors. So I've now made this entire image use only 32 colors. It looks pretty much the same. If you actually got real close to the computer, you can probably start to see a little bit of difference. Anything less than 32 starts to be really noticeable to the human eye. So 16-bit, so this would be like a Sega Genesis. You can see now I've lost a lot of details in the shadow. 8-bit, so now we're going back to the Atari, and you can see I've lost a lot of things based on that as well. Sometimes you need it, you can go down to 2 color, and now it's just those 2 colors. Downside is you can't really choose what colors you want it to be. So, more pixels, easier it is. Look at the file size for this one. It's less than half a megabyte versus almost 1.5 megabytes. So that's one reason why you would choose a GIF. Another reason for choosing a GIF is it allows you to save for transparency. We'll get into that in a little bit later. The final one is a PNG.
You have the WBMP?
I'll show you that one as well. Let me tell you about the PNG as well. PNG, this is the file format if you need to send high resolution images and you don't want it to be compressed, but you still want to be a relatively small file size. PNG is what you want to use. PNG is great for sending high quality, but it looks at just the pixels you need. It's sort of a cross between a JPEG and a GIF, but without the compression. And there's an 8-bit and a 24-bit. I'll show you the differences in just a second between what those two can do. The WBMP, off the top of my head, I don't remember what it stands for. This is if you want to create graphics for the old smartphones. So I've got an old candy bar phone. It's not an iPod or an iPad, but remember the cell phones that have just black and white on them? You just have, yeah, Nokia type phone. Yeah, that's what I have. AT&T, Samsung. Those type of ones, when you choose this one, it turns it just in black and white. And so this is the type of file format you would use if you wanted to create, I don't know, video game graphics for an old cell phone or something that's really, really super high compressed. Make sense? It's only in black and white. Let's see, file format for that one, wow, less than 10K or 100K. So there's that. For the first project, or first exercise that we're going to do, I'm going to hit cancel. In the artwork folder, you've got a variety of images that you can open up. All of these need to be resized and saved to be put up on an image gallery. So I'm going to open up this first one. We'll jump back into Save for Web. Now for this exercise, what it's going to ask you to do is to save a specific size, 300 pixels wide, as a JPEG format, but the file size has to be less than 60 kilobytes. So here's what you would do. First thing, choose JPEG as your file format. Next thing is at the very bottom, scroll down, down, down. Here's where you can change up the image size within the Save for Web file option. I'm telling you to save it as the width of 300, and so I'm just going to type in 300, and automatically it'll change up the height as well. Notice it'll also shrink it by a certain percentage. Now when I do that, automatically you can see my file size has dropped down to almost 100 kilobytes. I still need to make it much, much smaller. This is where adjusting the quality of an image comes in handy. So here's the quality of it. It works as a slider. Let me zoom back in so we can actually see what we're working with. If you reduce the quality, of course you can see now it's starting to get much, much fuzzier. Increase the quality, it'll be much sharper. So what I want you to do is adjust each of the sliders until it's just enough quality to be less than, let's see, I'm saying 60 kilobytes. So I'll bump it back up. Hey, for whatever reason, it's now chosen down to 44 kilobytes. I'm at 100%, so that's looking pretty good. By the way, some of the other options convert to sRGB. sRGB is what's called standard RGB. Most Windows computers, especially if it was made by Hewlett-Packard or Dell, are sRGB monitors. So if you want to save something that looks good on the majority of the world's computers, make sure this is checked off. Just by default, always check that off. Unless you're working on something specific, like the monitor has to have a certain color bit gamma, which probably would never happen, you always want to have that checked off, just for detail. So I've got my quality set to 100% JPEG. All I've got to do is hit save down at the bottom. It'll ask me what do I want to save it as, and this time I can change up the name of it. So what I want you to do is to add, let's see, thumbnail _ gallery to the beginning of each one of these. We'll hit save. It's going to save it down. In our case, I didn't save it to the finished exercise folder, but I saved it back into here. So I drag it off into there as well. Make sense? Pretty cool? That's the easiest thing that you can do. All you're doing is opening up and resizing the artwork to be saved from there. Here's the second thing that Save for Web will allow you to do. You can make something that has transparency to it. So let's say I wanted to open up, in this case we're going to be working under the blue logo. Notice that this is an Illustrator file. If you open an Illustrator file in Photoshop, just going to drag it straight to the icon, this is the dialog box that comes up. Illustrator files are treated like PDFs. And so the first thing it's going to ask you to do is what page do you want to work on? You can only work on one page at a time. Since I only have one page that has the logo, that's okay, but you'll see multiple pages if it's a multiple page PDF. You can also adjust the size and the resolution at this time. I'm not going to worry about it, we're just going to say okay. and open it up. So it's a pretty big file size, and it's got this logo. What I want to do is I want to remove the background. To remove a background, first of all, since I opened it up as an Illustrator file, notice what's missing in my layers palette. Background layer, bingo. It has no background layer, it just has a layer. So now if I was to choose my magic wand tool, select the red, well, make sure the layer is selected. If I was to delete it, automatically the background is going to give you the checkerboard pattern, which means transparency. If you have anything that's below it, if you do have a background layer, you must delete that background layer in order to achieve full transparency. If you don't have the background layer removed, you're not going to get the transparent put off. Let's go back up to File and Save for Web. In this case, instead of choosing the JPEG, we're going to change it to a GIF. GIF file format supports transparency. Notice that you got transparency turned on. Make sure it's checked off, and this is where you can see the checkerboard pattern behind it. If you don't have it checked off, it's going to turn the transparent back to white by default. Make sense? That's the most important thing that a lot of people forget about. I'm going to reduce this down, just show you. Alright, so here's one without transparency. Here's one, I'm going to save that one quickly to the desktop. I'll do it again with transparency. Save for web. This time transparency is turned on. Shrink it back down. Save it to the desktop as transparent GIF. So this is what I mean by a transparent GIF. We've got two different logos. Notice that they look exactly the same, except for this one has a transparency to it. If I was to load this into a program like PowerPoint, PowerPoint has a background to it. If I did just the regular GIF inside of it, it's going to give me the white outline because I didn't turn on transparency. If I put on the transparent GIF on top of it, this is what I'm getting. Does this make sense? Same way as in a website. When you create a website, you can tell what the background of that website is going to be, whether it's black or a picture or a gradation of color. Making a image on top of it will allow you to see that background through it. All cool?
Yes, sir.
Simplest thing as well. I'm going to hit, I'll keep that open. We'll come back to doing that as well. Also, make sure you know what, how many colors that you're working with. Check out the gradient that I have on here now. Looks pretty good. Looks pretty smooth going through there. Drop the number of colors, and it's going to change up to something like that. So the higher the colors you have, the better it'll be. Another thing is you can adjust the amount of diffusion that you have. And this is adjusted by dither. Dither means how choppy is this going to be. Right now it's pretty choppy. You can tell the difference between one color and the next. Watch what happens when I bump up the dither. 100%. Now it gradiates it out. Still using 64 colors, but now the colors are much better blended. So think of dither as blending. From there. Higher the dither, lower the colors, give you the same results. I'll let cancel from there. Any questions about this one? Like I said, it's going to be an easy, short day for today. So you can do it with the transparency, but there's another problem that tends to come up. Let's say I wanted to add a drop shadow to whatever I had. We're going to open up our smiley face that we used earlier this semester. So I've got a smiley face. He's in his own little layer. I'm going to add a drop shadow to his layer. Let's make it one that's pretty noticeable. I think I actually give you, yep, there we go. So 100% opacity. 6%, 0, and 24% size. There we go. Got my smiley face, got his drop shadow going on. Let's see what happens when I save it now as a GIF. File, save for web. Aha! Check this out. So I've got it saved. Look what's going on with the drop shadow. Why do you think it's doing that?
Because of the gray.
Yeah, because of the drop shadow. But why is it adding white to the background of it? No?
It's blending white to black.
Yeah, it's blending white to black. Keep in mind, the GIF supports transparency, but it doesn't support necessarily transparent pixels. So it can either be transparent or not. There's no 50% transparent. Make sense? So it has to be either 100% opaque or completely transparent altogether. And so when it sees this drop shadow, it's saying, okay, the drop shadow itself, these darker areas, they're 50% black. Well, there is no 50% opaque in a GIF. There's only 100% opaque. So they've got to make this 100%. And that's why it's adding white to the back of it. So if I went ahead and saved this just as a regular GIF, and I'll do it to the desktop, smiley GIF. And now I tried to place this one into my PowerPoint or onto a website, that's the way it's going to look. It's not going to be the exact idea that you want from there. Here's how to fix that. It took me forever to figure this one out too, because I had to make so many web graphics. We're going to go back to Save for Web. This is where the PNG comes in handy. PNG, I'll choose 8-bit for now. PNG can support multiple types of transparency. Instead of choosing no transparency dither, this is underneath the transparency, we're going to turn on a diffusion dither. There's 3 different algorithms you can choose from. I'm just going to choose the first one. Now see what we got here. Automatically, it's choosing the different types of, from there, but it creates a pattern from the opaque that we see from there. Make sense? So it's still transparent or not transparent, off or on, but instead it's kind of creating a pattern of off and on that kind of simulates a drop shadow. If I was to save this one as a PNG to the desktop, now let's place that one into Photoshop. This is the difference that it creates. It still kind of gives it a little scatter effect, but it's a lot better than the alternative from here. Make sense? So you still have the transparency, still got the drop shadow. Here's how you can make it look even better, because this still doesn't look like a true drop shadow. I want it to look like a true drop shadow. By the way, the file size for the PNG is 8 kilobytes. File size for the GIF is 12 kilobytes. So much smaller, better results. We'll do another save for web. This time, instead of an 8-bit PNG, choose 24-bit. Going to have a lot less options to choose from, but this one's going to give you the full spectrum of saving transparent pixels. So instead of it just being just transparent or just opaque, now you can do 50% full gradation of transparency. Save that one, Smiley, we'll call it Smiley 24. This one's back up to 12 kilobytes, a little bit larger. That's going to give me much better drop shadow from there. Cool? So when you make a button for your website, you want that button to have this really great drop shadow on it. You want it to show up really cool. You've got to save that button as a 24-bit PNG if you want that drop shadow to show up correctly. Anything else, it's not going to look good. It's going to look like doo-doo, and you're going to get fired, and everybody's going to be upset from there. Yeah, Mr. Ivy just said doo-doo in class. Okay, so that's how you can save basic images for the web. I know it's really boring, but it's one of those things that if you've never done it before, this comes in handy. Again, having it 2 up and 4 up will give you the ability to kind of see what the differences will look like between quality, and you just choose the best one to meet your needs from there. All right, now comes the hard stuff, the fun stuff. I'll close that one out. We're going to create an animated GIF. Have you ever seen an animated GIF before? They're becoming much more popular. Used to, they were just kind of the bane of website design. If you had a bunch of animated GIFs on your website, it usually meant you didn't know what you were doing making websites. You just put stuff on there, sparkles, to make it look cool. Now they're kind of becoming really trendy. You can make animated GIFs within Photoshop. Here's how to do it. First of all, every animated GIF is simply a frame-by-frame animation. And to do this, we need to open up what's called our timeline palette. So go to Window, make sure, there it is, Timeline is turned on. It's usually located at the very bottom of your screen. So here's the timeline. It takes up the full bottom edge of it. I'm going to pull it up just in case I don't keep clicking on it. Oh, go away, mini bridge. There we go. So down here is where we're mainly going to be working to create this. The animation that you're going to create is the horse galloping animation. I've given you 14 different frames to choose from. So to load them up, I'm going to first open up, let's see, make sure I do this right. Open up the first one into Photoshop. So it's in Photoshop on the background layer. It's on its own layer. What I need to do is open each frame and put each frame on its own independent layer within the layers palette. So y'all bear with me. All you have to do is drag it and drop it into here. So drag and drop. It's going to create a smart object, so you got to hit return. So now it's on layer 2. Same thing for each one. 3, whoop, 4, there's a way I can make an action for this, but there's just no good way. All right, got them loaded up. So, they're all in specific order. Make sure, however, that for this one at least, you've got them going from 2 to 14 from bottom to top. So 14 should be the topmost frame. Going down to your timeline, you've got 2 different options to choose from when you open it up. If you hit the down arrow, you can create a video timeline or a frame animation timeline. We're not going to deal with video this week. We'll get onto that later. We're just going to create a frame animation. With that one, click the button. It's going to open up. It's going to give you, first of all, your first frame. And so when you create an animation, what you need to do is create a new frame and then say what you want that frame to be. It's called keyframing. Your next keyframe is going to be. So in this case, our first frame is whatever is being shown in Photoshop. It's going to be the very top layer. To make a new frame, here's the new frame button. Click it. So here's frame 2. What I need to do is to go into my layers palette, turn off the visibility of layer 14, and so now I can see layer 13. Frame 2 is just showing layer 13. Go down, make a new layer, turn off a layer. Layer 14. Y'all see what I'm doing? Turning it off, turning it on, turning it off, turning it on. Back and forth each time. So, new layer, turn off layer 12, new layer, 11, all the way down until you reach the very last layer. From there. All cool? Actually, I think I need to make... Nope, I don't. I want to delete that one from there. Do I need the frame? Yes. Cool. So now I've got it all framed up. Let's go back to Save for Web and save it as a GIF. Computer will take care of everything else. File, Save for Web. Choose Optimized. Make sure that a GIF is selected. Now when you save this, it's not going to go ahead and animate it for you. It's only going to show you what the last frame that you had up. You can, however, preview this. Down at the very bottom left-hand side is a preview button. Clicking it will open up whatever your last web browser was. And we'll hit refresh. And there we go. We got it playing. Notice that what it's doing, however, it's only playing it once. So if I refreshed it, it's going to play the GIF once, and it's going to stop. What I want it to do is to play over and over and over again. Here's how you can do that. Let's close this out. I'll hit cancel. We'll go back into our timeline. Bottom left-hand corner of the timeline. This tells you how many times you want it to play. You can type in 3 times, forever. You can type in any particular number that you want. In our case, I just want it to loop forever. So now when I save it as a GIF, hit preview. Once it all loads up, if it decides to work. Oh, come on. What did I do wrong? Got you forever. Oh, I bet I didn't have GIF selected. There we go. Now I hit preview. There we go. It'll loop over and over and over again forever. Congratulations. You now know how to make your own animated GIFs. Y'all can animate, I don't know, bananas dancing with maracas, those type of things. So, that's one type of animation that you can create, one frame at a time, turning off each one. Here's the second type of animation that you can create. Here's the last one that you'll do for today's exercise. I'll close this out and not save it. For this one, Let's say you're working for a car company, and car company wanted to showcase different views of the car. So in this case, the new Bentley that's coming out. So it's got this image, it's got this image, this one, and the interior images as well. What it wants to do is play kind of as a slideshow. In other words, it wants to show this one, say for 5 seconds. Then I want it to transition slowly to this one, play for 5 seconds, transition, so on and so forth. And I want to make this as a GIF that you can upload really small. Here's how to create a transitioning type of GIF. And this is called a Tween GIF. You'll see why in the first place. First of all, let me open up the first one. And we'll go ahead and put on each of the images. Actually, should have opened up the number 6 for this one. I misnumbered them. For this one, open 6 and we'll go backwards. So 6, 5, and 1. So for this particular one, make sure it's 1 through 5 and then your background layer for that one. We're going to do the same thing. In our timeline, create a frame animation. In this case, I've got frame 1 loaded up. I'm going to create a new frame.
Why do you have to turn off the visibility?
Because, so the visibility for frame 1 is showing this one. For frame 2, I want it to show just this one.
Okay.
And so that's what it's going to do for this for here.
Okay.
In this case, instead of turning off visibility, what I want to do, instead of just clicking that one, is drop the opacity down to 0. You'll see why in just a second. So in this one, it's still showing frame 1 is this one, frame 2 is this one. But what I want to do, selecting frame 2, click on the button that's next to new frame. This is called your Tween button. It's going to create, I'll give you a dialog box. It's going to look at both of these frames, frame 1, frame 2, and it's going to add a number of frames between frame 1 and 2 that steps or changes in this case, the opacity of it. So remember, frame 1 had this one at 100%, frame 2 down to 0%. So in 5 frames, it's going to drop the opacity between frame 1 and frame 2. Or if you change the position of something or added a drop effect, it would add it from that one. And we'll say OK. And that's what it's going to do. So now I've got 5 frames in between that one. So check this out. I'm going to click on frame 1. If I hit my space bar, I can actually play it. You see it transition from there? What it's doing is it's dropping the opacity a little along each frame. And so that's creating a tween animation. So do the same thing for each one. Create a new layer, or excuse me, a new frame. Choose frame 2, drop the opacity. With layer 8 selected, frame 8, make a new tween, hit OK. So now, it'll transition between one and the other. New frame, 3, drop the opacity, create a tween. All you gotta do is say OK once you've done it once. New frame, drop the opacity, create a tween, say OK. New frame, drop the opacity, create a tween, say OK. All cool? All right. Now if I was to play it, let's tell you what, let's go up to web, save for web, get my GIF going on. We'll preview it. Looking pretty cool, huh? So it's transitioning between one and the other. What's the problem that you saw there? It's too quick. I want it to stop on each one. I want it to have a particular duration for specific frames. What I need to do, go back into your timeline, choose the frame, the keyframe that you changed up. In our case, frame 1. Here's where you can change the duration of it. At the very bottom, it's going to be on there for 0 seconds. From here, I can change it to 2 seconds. So it's going to stop on frame 1 for 2 seconds. 1, 2, then go on. Change, change, change. So by frame 7, it should be on this one. I need to change frame 7 to 2 seconds. Have I lost everybody? Then change, 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 change. Frame 13, change that to 2 seconds. Tell you what, let's test that one out. So it should stop just 3 times and then transition back. I'll even have to change this to loop forever. There we go. Save for web. GIF. Let's preview it. So, 1, 2, change. 1, 2, change. 1, 2, keep changing, da, 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 and loop back. 1, 2. Pretty cool? So that's how you can create a tween animation. And for this one, all I'm doing is changing the opacity. You could also change the position of something. So if you had, say, a little man, you wanted him to move across the screen, make him on one layer, and then move him from one frame to the other, and the computer will make the number of frames in between it change up as well. That's all that we're going to do today. I tried to type it out as best as possible. Of course, I'll have the video uploaded online. For your homework, however, let me explain this before let y'all go. Starting next class period, you're going to make your own website mock-up. It's not going to be any type of website. You're going to teach people how to dance. How many people in here know how to dance? Oh, fantastic. This is going to be great. We're all going to be miserable together. We're going to learn through this one. How many of y'all seen the video Evolution of Dance? It's like one of the... Evolution of Dance. It's this guy that goes through like the last 5 or 6 decades of different dance styles to different music. I'll skip ahead. Okay, that's enough tomfoolery for today. There's another website. There's an online comedian, extremely hilarious. He's got a great, his name is Zay Frank. Actually, if you type in his name, or I gave you the website, let's see, Zay Frank and dance. It's the first one that comes up. This is kind of how he made his mark. He sent out this birthday, or it was a party invitation. It was going to be a dance party. And he just filmed himself making a bunch of GIFs doing different types of dance moves. Have y'all seen this before? You can click on it, and it's just him. You know, this is the dance, Ride the Pony. So these are the different dances you can do, or the basic twirl, or hanging out, casual, you know, new school, old school, the Elaine ripoff. If y'all watch Seinfeld, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Anywho, we're going to make a website similar to this. What I want you to do is, I want you to research one dance move. Just something, it can be as goofy as this. I'm going to record you dancing. You can make up a dance, you can do a legitimate dance. It doesn't have to be long. You see, it's just the same moves over and over again. And we're going to make a website from this. I'm going to show you how to mock it up in Photoshop. We're going to make an animated GIF of you doing it. We're going to put everybody's on there.
Yeah.
This won't be seen outside of class, unless I need to blackmail you, and then I'll bust it out. Okay? So for your homework, come up with or research a very stupid, simple dance that it takes 2 or 3 moves to do that you don't mind doing in front of a camera. Okay? We'll make it simple. All right, I'll let y'all.
You're evil.
I'm not evil.